Hi, and nice to see you all. Welcome. So this is the 7th seminar in the series of seminars organized by Creatures. And this time we have with us not one but two very special guests. Isabelle Le Galo, that is the director of the Daniel and Nina Carasso Foundation that operates in Spain and France, and Sören Meschede, that is the coordinator of the project that they are going to present today, that is called Concomitentes, which is a new methodology, or not so new, but like very promising methodology that enables citizens and other groups to commission artworks, public artworks in the areas of their interest. So I think the project is very relevant to Creatures, as it's really addressing how creative practice and policy and citizens can come together around common goals and common projects. So without saying much more, I give the floor to Sören and Isabelle. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christina. Hi, everybody. I hope you are all doing good and the situation is not being too harsh on you. I'm going to ask Nick to cut his micro. Thank you very much, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here today to present this initiative, and I'm really looking forward to all your questions. I will start, but before I will hand up to Sören so he can introduce himself as well. Would you like to say a word, Sören? I think we don't hear you.
No, I give you the floor.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start sharing. Sören is our the master of the Spanish project here of what is called New Patrons. And I'm going to show a short presentation about this initiative, which is, so as I was saying, in English, it's New Patrons. In French, it's Nouveaux Commanditaires. In Spanish, it's Concomitentes. It has names in different countries in Europe, and is a methodology for a social political transformation through the arts. Hang on, it's not going. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to say very briefly is who we are and why we are so interested in this initiative, which is for us one of the ways we can work on democratic models in Europe, and especially in France and Spain. The foundation is called Daniel and Nina Carasso. It was created by Marina Namias, who is the only child of Daniel and Nina, and both were two very free and passionate spirits. They have a trajectory in life through their ancestors that is very diverse, with stories of migrations, stories, a life that has been changing throughout the decades, that gave them a big curiosity for people and for initiatives, and a huge generosity, especially in terms of arts. And it's their memory which led us to defining 2 lines of action as a family foundation. What we do is grant making, and we're grant making in order to accelerate the system or society transition towards sustainable food systems on one hand, and what we call citizen arts on the other hand. We support projects in France and in Spain. We provide financial support in the form of subventions, but also sometimes in the form of impact investing. And we provide support in terms of human resources and of diverse capacity building initiatives or network building initiatives that help build the sustainability and the strength and the exemplarity of the initiatives. We're driven by social impact. We do mix a lot research, empirical knowledge, experimentation, evaluation, shared learning, because what we want to do is beyond the projects that we support. We want to make sure that what they learn helps others to do the same, or to do better, or to continue in the same direction. In 6 key figures, we were born 10 years ago only. We started our operations in Spain in 2014. As I said, we have 2 lines of action: citizen arts and sustainable food systems. Up to the end of 2019, we had distributed in subvention a bit more than 83 million euros in France and in Spain mainly, but not only, in the form of 1,105 subventions. And we have started work that is going to grow a lot with the investment in projects that have a social and environmental positive impact, up to 30 million euros. We're 6 fixed salaries in Spain and 10 in France. And what we're looking to implement and to leave as a trace of our work is really a transition from an extractive economy system to a living economy system. We do that through arts and alimentation, which are 2 fields that are really transverse and really help working in the different dimensions of the whole system, right? It helps work on the governance system. It helps work on the environmental aspects. It helps work on the social and equity aspects, and a long strain of things. What is important, I think, here is the fact that we try to find the initiatives with regards to a systemic approach. It's not just that we like the initiatives, although we do. It's not just that they are doing a great work on their own. It is that together with a series of other activities, which can be linked with research or can be linked with lobby or can be linked with other aspects, altogether they help the society to move from one way of inhabiting this planet to another, which is more sustainable in all aspects and more caring. And when I enter a little bit in citizen arts, what we consider is art as a language, which has accompanied the human being since its origins, right? So it gives answers to the needs and of finding meaning around what surrounds us, of fostering social bonds, of imagining other possible futures, and of developing our critical thinking and our sensibility. And we're living right now the paradox of not having needed more culture and arts anytime in the past, and at the same time, as societies, not being fully aware of it and not being fully able to recognize its value. Whereas really, and this is documented, as Homo sapiens, arts are really intrinsic to our being, and it is the condition and the mean through which we have been able to share the knowledge that each generation develops, and has enabled us to be able to build together in a much wider way than the tribe and the one generation where an individual is born. And so we are looking forward to, and we are trying to put this on the table and to show the value of it and to unleash its full potential. We have 3 programs: art and education, art, science, and society, and artists that are fully engaged with the community. In arts and education, we work with schools, we work with universities, and we work with the model of mediation. And there we are very much worried about the models of participation, civic participation, and the questions around democracy. What are the methodologies through arts of a full participation that we can put in motion in order to reinforce our democratic models, or to make them evolve in the right direction so we can all think intergenerationally the future. In arts, science, and society, we're looking for a role of arts that really opens new universe for innovation by connecting with science and with the community. And the prize of the artist that is engaged with the community seemed to us also an important way to put in value and to show the trajectory of the artists who are really working in connection with the contemporary challenges that we are facing as a society and with the community, with the people, and to show what their trajectories and their projects can be. So very shortly, this is who is Fundación Carasso and why we are asking ourselves all these questions. And since our beginning, since our birth in 2010, we supported the programs of new patrons in France and in Spain. We started asking the question and working with a lot of people. So Concomitentes could be born in 2018. Here you have a picture of the different names and different initiatives of the New Patrons program across Europe. New Patrons is a loose network of organization on a European level, and despite their differences, the work they do is the same, really. They operate through a unique methodology that has been developed in 1919 by François Hers. This methodology is called the protocol, and what it states is that every person has the possibility to make the commission an artwork from an artist. This is a democratization of the commissioning of art, and it is in itself a little revolution in the sense that it tries to bring the same effect that democracy has had on people to the world of culture. It is a very interesting process that takes the time of a very precise and profound work with the persons who are interested in commissioning an artwork for a specific purpose. This artwork is commissioned to solve something, to talk about something that really makes a lot of sense and has a lot of importance for one person or a group of people or a place in our society and in our democracy. It helps propose an artist that can create, that can invent this artwork around this issue for these people and in that place. And it proposes for that purpose a mediator, who is the person who works with the group of commissioners. In Spain, New Patrons is called Concomitentes, and the Spanish initiatives was kickstarted in 2018. It is one of our strategic projects here in Spain, and the overall aim, as I said, is to identify groups of citizens and work with them on the commissioning of specific pieces of art that you are going to see in details now when Sören shows you. So what is exactly Concomitentes? Well, it's first a group of citizens that detect an issue that arises from their social context on which they want to work through arts. When they identify they want to work on this project, on this problem through the arts, they contact Concomitentes. And Concomitentes is the organization who assigns a mediator to the group. The mediator works with the group in order to unearth the underlying desire and develop the commission itself, and suggests an artist, and the artist proposes. Oh, it's going too fast. I'm sorry. Proposes a project to the group. Then sometimes there is a work also of fundraising by the commissioners at a local level in order to make sure that the production of the piece of art can be done, and at the same time build a network, a local network of support and of knowledge of the initiative that is important. Very quickly, a few examples at European level of new patron projects. Here you have Temple of Refuge. It's a German project that took place in Berlin. The idea comes from a Iraqi refugee who wanted to tell the story and to explore the transformation that happens when migration occurs, right? And when people come from another place and settle in a new place. He was living at the Berlin airport, which is a place that was built by the Nazis. And this is where the whole work started. And they started working with the New Patrons organization in Germany and started identifying the different origins and sharing of a narrative with different other people from other places that were in the same center, and working on the narrative with an artist, and then working on this comic, which has no text, which is universal in a way, exploring this this question. The comic itself, correct me if I'm wrong, Sören, will be public and will be launched in 2021. So very soon, I think, in the end of the how do you say that in English? Beginning of the summer, I think it will be.
It is launched already, actually.
Okay. So maybe we can put in the chat where people can see it. It would be nice. Maybe if you can put also, Sören, the link to new patrons. You have a website in English where you can see many of the initiatives that have taken place in those past decades across Europe. Here it's another initiative. What is interesting is just 4 examples we took from different countries in Europe. So you see the diversity of projects and the commands that commissioners actually make. Here what you have is a sculpture and a restaurant at the same time, which is in Lille. It's it is an interpretation of the typical baraque à frites that is very key to the identity of people from the northern part of France and Belgium. And it takes place, it is situated in a public space where they were struggling to have sort of a social life and social connections. And so they brought here a new type of restaurant with a different type of quality of food that they were doing, and something that really strikes, and working on social bonds through this initiative. Here you have Figures Imposées, takes place in the southern part of France. The commissioners are a group of women that come from very diverse places across the world. They are escaping from very difficult situation, and this is a movie from Bertil Bach that explores the different things they have, their trajectories have in common, right? And they are, with this image you can see it, they're exploring the difficult situations and obligations life put on them through their trajectory. It's a very beautiful movie. And here you have another project, Cantiere Barca, which is a project in Torino, in Italy. It is about young people constructing their own public space with a group of architects, using recycled material and really exploring new ways of making it, and ownership of that public space. Also a very beautiful project that I invite you to, you can look into more details in the link that we'll put in the chat. And I will not speak more because I want to give the floor to Sören, who will speak now of the details of the process and the Spanish initiative Concomitentes.
Thank you, Isa, very much. I share my screen. So, as Isa already said, hello everybody. Thank you very much, Isa. Concomitentes is a Spanish nonprofit. It was founded in 2018 by the initiative of Fundación Carasso, and the foundation invited 5 art agents, art professionals from Spain to develop a Spanish version of Nuevo Comunitaire, of New Patrons, as it is called in English. And these are the 5 of us. Felipe Gegil, you might know him. He's also here with us. So Felipe, if you have anything to comment, please feel free to comment. Then on my side in blue is Julia Morandeira, curator based in Madrid. Next person is Veronica Valentini, an Italian curator based in Barcelona. And then Frank Quiroga, researcher, university man, anthropologist in Galicia, in the northwest of Spain. As said, we are now in our pilot project since 2018. And basically what we are doing is we are working on 4 commissions. We call them Concomitentes. And what we did is we created this nonprofit as a legal entity in order to scale up the project in the future, which is mainly my task. And then my 4 colleagues are developing the 4 projects, the 4 pilot projects since 2018 in the territory. We're, in this sense, scaling up an initiative that already existed in Spain beforehand, Nuevos Comunitarios, but that only existed in the Basque country, where they developed 4 projects. Maybe you have heard of some of them already. To delve into what we're doing actually is we have Frank Erola working with a group of neighbors in Betanzos, in Galicia, who want to refurbish a historical park in their village. We have Julia Morandeira working with the staff of the University Library of the Faculty of Fine Arts of the Complutense University in order to think about and to develop an idea about what could be and what should be a university library in post-book moments, like where our reading habits and our study habits actually turn digital, and where libraries actually need to fulfill another purpose than mainly giving out books. Then we have Veronica Valentini. She's working currently with a group of CRIP activists in Barcelona about a different politic of care that is not trying to put the people who are actually with discapacities, who are physically challenged, as sick, but as just another way of being. And what they want to create is a shared space, a shared political space, a shared party space, a shared space of coming together, where the diversity is not a problem, but a good that is actually being helping to create a new way of relating each other. And then we have Felipe, already mentioned. He's working with a group of nurses of the intensive care unit, the pediatric intensive care unit of Tenerife, who is actually very, very interested in the group of Concomitentes, a group of patrons. They're really interested in creating a model and creating a cultural product that helps them to overcome the often very, very tense relationships with the young patients and with their families who come into the intensive care unit, because of course the nurses are the ones who are actually with the people, with the patients on a day-to-day basis, and they do not have any psychological education, whereas actually they are the ones who are needing to deal with those psychological problems and anxieties and nervous that those patients have in their unit. And they demand a cultural product that somehow helps them to overcome and to helps them to establish relations with their young patients. So this is more or less an overview about the project that we are actually now creating. Some of them have already some artists, some of them still do not. And you see that we started in 2018, so you see already the projects are really, really long term. And we are basically now in the mediation phase still in some of them, also due to COVID, of course, because you can imagine like creating a feast and a cabaret with high-risk patients in Barcelona is not the best thing to do in a pandemics. At the same time, of course, it's very, very difficult to work with the nurses in an intensive care unit during pandemics. So in 2020, basically, we had a hold on the whole project. But nevertheless, like what I want to say is that it's a really long way that we're going, and we hope that we will finish 1 or 2 projects during this year, but probably some of them will be taking till next year at least. The importance of the mediation phase that I have been just mentioning, I want to explain a bit more on the basis of the example of the project in Galicia with Frank Quiroga. Basically because I think there's a very interesting point in this project that helps to understand the whole transformation process that we are doing. So you see here, this is Betanzos, beautiful Betanzos in northeast Spain and northwest Spain, sorry. 12,000 inhabitants, was really important in the 13th century. Now it is not that much important now. It's just a minor town in Galicia. And what happened with all those towns in Galicia? Galicia is an emigration country. Like especially in the 18th century, people came to the former colonies of Spain, exploited those colonies, and came back rich, or some of them at least. And among them, the Garcia Naveira brothers. You see them here with their impressive masters. They were from Betanzos, and they came back to Betanzos as rich men after having exploited the colonies in Peru with silver mines, and they brought back with their fortunes also the desire to bring back some of their fortunes for the village. So they had an important work in Betanzos. They created an orphanage. They created an asylum. They created a public laboratory. They created a school, and they created this park, El Parque Pasatiempo. The name, the translation says it's a passing time, a pastime park, and it's somehow like a previous version of what you could call now the theme parks, the Disney parks in a way. So it has a very leisure aspect, but it also has an educational aspect, and basically wanted to show, in the spirit of enlightenment and of Masonry, the wonders of the earth to the people in Betanzos, and showing them around the world, showing them the different cities, explaining the new advances in technology and science. And this park was created end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, finished in 2014, was then abandoned. Like you see here, the whole colored area is the 9 hectares of the park, and what is remaining of this park, historically remaining, is this red highlighted area. And the rest has been repurposed for many different things. For example, some supermarkets, football ground, some roads crossing the parks, and another park just being built on this park. So there was a big neglection, actually, a public neglection of the historical site of this town. And actually now, despite being protected as a heritage site, the park is closed because it's in a big risk of falling down. And for this reason, many 8 neighborhood associations have been created, or mainly one neighborhood association has been created, the Save the Park Association, or the Friends of the Park Association. And they demanded from the public authorities to refurbish this park. And this is the moment when Frank Quiroga, the mediator, enters the stage, and he, as a neighbor of Betanzos, sees the potential in this project to work through the methodology of Concomitentes with the neighbors. What he's doing is basically asking the initial idea of the neighbors if this idea is the correct idea. Like the basic initial idea was, please refurbish the park, give us the money to make this nice again. And he reframes, in a way, this question to let's think about a piece of art that somehow gives credit to the historical importance of the park, but that is not refurbishing the park, that just helps us to think about how to care for it in the future. And this process of reframing the initial demand of the patrons is one of the main parts of this mediation process, to really start working with the neighbors, with the group of people who demand the initial work, to delve onto the desire and to find a way how to reframe it so that it can be then taken on by an artist. And in this process, Fran is still working. It's now a 2-year-long process with the whole village of Betanfos, actually. And basically what he wants to do, or what he's asking in this process, is those two questions, which are kind of self-critical, because they actually ask on why the previous legacy of Betanfos, this big park, has been abandoned. And why would there be an interest of to create a new legacy through Concomitentes? So this, I took this project because I think it brings very much to the point the question that is behind Concomitentes. So it is not just kind of a frivolous idea of let's create new artworks that are being liked by the inhabitants of different towns in Europe. It's more really about the question of why do we want an artwork, and how can we actually care for it in the future, and what is the worth of this artwork for us as a community. And in this sense, I think, and we can maybe later in the questions talk about the other projects a bit more in detail, there's this transformation process happening. It's not so much about the final artwork, it's more within the process towards the artwork where the magic happens, in a sense. So because the planned artwork serves as a catalyst in a way, and the collaboration with the artist brings in a playful element, because there's the conversations among patrons and among the wider neighborhood or the wider context are usually stuck, because there has been always talk going on about certain things, and the relations are pretty clear. And when this idea of the artwork enters the stage and enters the discussions, then everything changes, because then people can project towards a new space of relation. And by this new space, really reframe and reset their relationships. And this brings new people into the process, and this brings established and somehow viced relationships into new contexts, and they can be somehow overturned. So there's this interesting point in the methodology of François Herves that we are actually really focusing very much on. I have to say, of course, that we're focusing very much on this for the very moment, because we have not been developing any projects to the very end. So this is our first pilot project. But what we see for the time being, that this transformation process here is that happens in the negotiation between mediator, artist, and citizens. There's exactly the interesting point of the whole project. I leave it here, and I think it's a very good moment for you to ask questions.
Thank you so much, Isabelle and Sören. It was really exciting to know more about this project, and also to see how complex it becomes once it's applied in a specific case. And thank you for also sharing this kind of like intricacies for this example. I think I have a couple of questions, but maybe let's first see if there are more questions from some of the people. Any hands up? Nope. Okay. So, so you said that in the example that you mentioned, this community was identified by the mediator, so one of the 5 people that you are working with. Like, how else do you find this kind of communities that they want to commission an artwork, and how do you know if they are committed to the process and if they are willing to undergo this lengthy process, and also like to question their motivations and to be open to, you know, like redefining their agenda? What is the way of recruiting the communities, let's say, before you start recruiting the artists?
Yeah, this is a very good and very obvious question, because if we would only curate, so to say, the communities, then it would be somehow a farce. Like, this would not be the social transformation process that we're actually talking about. But you have to take in mind that we are doing this as a pilot project now, so we actually have to start somewhere. And for this reason, for this first project, actually to have some examples of best practice was necessary, and it is necessary to go onto our context that we have close in our proximity. So those 4 projects are being directly, let's say, selected by the mediators through personal relations, through immediate neighborhood, through affinities. For example, Felipe, he's working in Andalusia as one of the coordinators of Hacemos 98, but he's from Tenerife, so he has personal relations with those nurses, and this of course helps to establish those initial relationships. This being said, of course, our idea is once those 4 projects have been finished, or once we have established a certain idea of best practice, then to open up to do another way of selecting those communities by open calls, or by calls in a way. Like, we want them to come to us. We do not want to go towards them, but we want to come to them to us. But this needs, of course, still some time, and this needs, and here goes hi to another colleague that is with us today, Noelia Barrientos. This needs a lot of communication strategies, because we have to find a way how to be able to communicate as a cultural organization within the social field. Because we want to reach, of course, communities that are not usually being so attached to the culture, to the field of culture. So I still think that this is a pretty long process that we will be doing during the next year, slowly building up like a communication towards a social field.
Great, thank you. I see Joost is waiting to ask a question.
Oops, sorry. Thank you, Christina. Yeah, Isabella, I was very intrigued by your systemic transition model, and I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how did you arrive at such an interesting overarching framework.
Okay, so I put it back on the screen if you want. This is a model that has been developed from Edge Funders Alliance, which is a very interesting initiatives, which, well, makes, especially, they do a lot of things, but one of the things they do is a yearly congress where NGOs and activists meet with funders of, from the philanthropic field mainly, who are interested in building a new future for this world. And so in doing so, in making sure that there is a dialogue between the two, they have been developing conceptual model for this transition. The difficulty here is not so much to think of the world of the future that we think is one that will be more just and that will be sustainable from a social and an environmental standpoint, right? The difficulty here is to think of the transition. How do we move from one to the other in a way that is realistic, I would say? And so they came up with this model, which I think is always, it is always interesting because it shows the interdependency of each of the elements that are mentioned here. We're a world made of what we buy every day as people, what our society produces every day for society, made of how we take decisions, made of what is the intermediary between us and the products and the decision. Is it money? Is it democracy? How do we handle the decisions? Where is the power? And how do we care for each other? And so there is one model, which is our current model, which is this extractive economy, where we're in a model of exploitation, really, of resources, and to some extent of the people and of the way our society is structured. And the whole difficulty is to be here in the middle, right? When we are trying to fund and to find and to empower projects that shift the vision and the values towards something different. I think the whole question here is shifting the values, and shifting the values in a very widely diverse set of institutions, agents, projects. So we need to be convincing in shifting these values in very different organizations, and towards which are we shifting this model? Well, we're shifting it towards a model of a living economy, where the values of why and how we produce goods or services are extremely linked with life itself, with preserving, with regenerating, with caring for people and the planet in the way we do economy, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the term of solidarity and social economy, which is this economy that takes place inside a social problem and not outside of it. So to put an example, if you take the example of an orange juice, the orange juice can be made by a company who wants to make orange juice and money, or it can be made by a company who makes oranges and but makes it with ecological oranges, or with ecological and social oranges that takes care of human rights also in all the the steps of the producing, or it can take place in an initiative which can be a company as well, or get to a cooperative model of an initiative that what the initiative was born for is to deal with food waste. By dealing with food waste is dealing with laboral integration, and is dealing with some of aspects, and in the end gets to producing orange juices to give some sustainability to this social and environmental initiative. So that's a little bit the difference. And in that initiative, you can see that there is caring, there is regeneration, there is ecological and well-being aspect, there is deep democracy at stake. And that's a little bit I think I explained the model, but I'm happy to answer any additional question.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Isabelle.
Thanks for the question, Just.
And I really think that values filter is very interesting there as a framing as well. So wonderful. And it's also interesting to see the organizations that help develop these sort of the movement of communities with the funders. Seems to be an interesting constellation of actors there. Yeah. Anne is asking whether we can see the report somewhere. That would be great. The website of Edge Funders. Excellent.
Yeah, check the website of Edge Funders and do not hesitate to get in contact with them. They're extremely keen on getting in touch and sharing.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know you said you are just going in, you are just piloting these projects, but I was wondering if you know from the other partner organizations in Europe and from the projects that they have been realized there, if there has been any like monitoring of the afterlife of the projects. So for projects that they were realized, let's say in the 90s or in the early years of the New Patrons Initiative, like has there been any like long-term evaluation of the effects that they've had, or how have they survived throughout the years?
Maybe if you allow me, Sören, just before talking of the long term and the evaluation of the transformation of the projects, I'd like to spot the middle term, which is going to arrive here in Spain. But just when you finish the projects and you inaugurate the projects and you talk of the projects, usually what you see, we've seen it very much in France, for example, in the French projects. What you see is very interesting, is suddenly a local intense debate in media and within the people around, which usually talks of the legitimacy, interrogates the legitimacy of the people to make a comment, especially when it is a public art object. The legitimacy of the people to make a comment, right? And the comment is made with all the legal steps that has to be done in order to make that project live. It is made with economical support that it requires. And so what happens at that moment is a democratic conversation. It's about deep democracy. What does it mean to put in place, for me, from where I am, how I see new patrons, is through all its incredible potential, to talk of what it means to be working with deep participation of people in a process that is really collective. It takes the time to go down and down and down in the roots of what every person brings to a community. And that debate, I think, somehow sets the rules differently for the people who leave that debate on the local scale. It's something different happens there, right? It's a question of freedom, it's a question of empowerment, it's a question of being a citizen, a true citizen, an empowered citizen in the locality. That's one aspect that I would say about the middle term. With regards to evaluation, I don't know, Sören, if you have data about the European initiatives. I know you have, before launching the Spanish initiative, this team of people, Felipe and Sören and the rest of the team, explored in depth the models that were developed in France, in Germany, in Italy, in the different countries in Europe.
So the thing is, the project started, as Isabelle said, in the 90s in France, and you have to take in mind that in the 90s there was a different vision of the whole thing. So what is now happening is that we somehow take on the methodology of François Hers and use it in a way more in the spirit of social transformation. Whereas maybe the initial point of François Hers in the very beginning was really like this idea of the creation of new artworks that are being commissioned by people. A point, period. This means that the focus of most of the projects that are being documented in the website of Nouveaux Commentaires is on the artwork itself, not so much on the transformation process. It happened, but it has not been documented, or it has not been really analyzed. Basically, because there was this focus on the artwork. There's one project that actually has a really nice documentation, which is one I just sent to you on the chat, which is a project that has been developed in a little village in France. With an Austrian artist called Remy Zaug. If somebody of you knows him or knew him, he's dead now. He was a really grumpy old man, and not at all like this idea of the collaborative artists who really wants to speak with the people and create a relational work. And to see these pretty grumpy villagers in France and Remy Zaug, this grumpy old artist, get together and create this beautiful project that has nothing in common with the initial idea, neither of Remy Zaug nor the villagers, is a very good example of how this transformation process happens. But nevertheless, like there's not so much documentation on that. I send you the link to the video because I think it's really inspiring to see it. But this is, for me, maybe the best material that there is. But this brings me to the point that we are actually really keen on documenting everything and documenting the whole process and making public the whole process. So we have several videos being published now about the process itself and how actually the patrons, the mediators, and the artists are thinking about the process. I can also send you those links, or I send you the link to our new YouTube channel where we have all the videos inside, and this might be giving you an idea.
Great, thank you. Ellen, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been very inspiring. Myself, I'm from Erasmus University, Rotterdam, so Netherlands, so I recognize Joost. But I've been living in, well, I'm from Belgium originally, so I know the nieuwe opdrachtgevers, but when I read this invitation and this description of the program, I didn't make the connection, and now I understand. I think I understand why. But I was wondering, like in the Netherlands, there are no nieuwe opdrachtgevers yet, no concomitentes yet. What does it take? What would it take in order to start an initiative as yours, apart from, I guess, a number of mediators and I guess also the financial support? What else does it take, for example, in terms of public support? Is there any public support? I'm very curious to figure out.
It's a huge question you ask, Helen. But well, Sören and Felipe, they can answer that question with a great sense of details. From my end, I would say you need a first sponsor that you can be sure can accompany you during a few years, so you can start off the initiative. And you definitely need to work on some sort of shared governance. So I think it's important to have other people who have been working on similar processes and protocols be from time to time with you to share learnings and to share views on the different aspects that you are going to be touching in your country. And with regards to public support, it's very different from one country to another, from one political administrative architecture in one country in another. And so it may well happen from the beginning, or you may well have to build the case first from private support and then escalate to public support. The strategy here really highly depends on the political administrative architecture and the people, the support you can have in public administrations.
Yeah, Isa is totally right. I think there's no copyright or something on the whole project. It's like an anarchic copyleft thing. Like François Herz put this out, and everybody who's free is free to take it on and to use it as a methodology. But the fact is that if you take it on and if you really operate through this methodology, you need a really sustained and long-term support, because it's really expensive, and it is also quite kind of fragile, because you need you need sponsors that are not trying to exploit the project for their own means, for example, because it's like you're working with these fragile communities, so it's not very, very easy to use a bank, for example, that then wants to make an image video out of that, for example. And very often the grants that you can have through public calls or whatever usually are not having the long-term idea in mind. Like if you have a project that develops through 3 or 4 or 5 years, usually those grants are not exactly the thing that you need. So this is the main problem, basically, finding the money for funding those projects, which can be really expensive. In the mediation phase, because the mediators need money, and also in the production phase, because the production in public space within public sphere is usually very expensive. So, for example, in France, there have been projects that are easily costing more than €1 million. There have been schools being built. But, but I think if you're really interested in this, specifically in Holland or in the Netherlands, I think it would be really interesting to speak with Casco, because I've heard that Casco, Pinatoy, is actually trying to develop something similar in the Netherlands, like in parallel. She has not really been thinking about Nouveau Communautaire or the patrons, but the idea is there. And then you have in Netherlands the Arte Útil Association, which is a very different project, but at the same time has similarities that are really interesting. And to talk with Gemma Medina, who is the coordinator of this, is really interesting too.
Would I be too quick in thinking that the European Cultural Foundation would be a good partner? Would you say, Sören?
What do you say, Felipe?
Yes to everything, especially if it has to do with more funding for this kind of projects. Yeah, I think the Edge Alliance is a good example, because one thing we don't have in Spain is a progressive philanthropic sector. And I think we will need more private foundations with a non-profit profile, but also with a socially engaged profile, like Daniel and Nina Carasso Foundation. And this is an advocacy we need to do locally, let's say, because there is a lack of, I mean, most of the time the foundations here are linked to huge banks. And in some cases, they have some good programs, but generally speaking, they are not involved in this level of radicality, let's say. And hopefully, by insisting, we could add more in the future. The sooner, the better.
Yeah, and you know what you are saying, Felipe? I say we, but I mean Concomitentes decided this diversity of projects that you have seen here in Spain, also having in mind that what we are doing in this pilot phase is building the case with a diversity of projects, talking of themes that are very different, in order, in a second step, to be able to position this way of working with citizenship in a manner that will interest many different other agents. It can be companies at a local level, it can be community foundations which are being born here in Spain, it can be other private foundations, or it can be public administrations. So it's a very, when you look at it, what we are doing here in Spain is a very long-term approach. We are thinking 15 years on.
In this sense, together with the other organizations, mainly the Flemish and the German organizations, and the French, of course, we're also trying to create something like a European network of organizations that are working around Nouveau Communautaire. And we are having asked for a Europe plus Erasmus Plus project that is hopefully starting by the end of this year. And there's some interest of trying to make some kind of lobby effort for the European Commission and the European Parliament, specifically addressing the 1% for the arts scheme that you might have heard of, which is actually the perfect funding source for this kind of projects.
Wonderful. It would be very nice to see some collaborations emerging out of this seminar. I think it would be a great achievement for Creatures. But seeing that our time is up, I would like to thank you again, Isabelle and Sören, for joining us and sharing your knowledge and this really, really exciting project. I'm sure we will be in touch for with more questions and more ways to involve.
We're really happy to receive the questions and suggestions. It is a pleasure to be here. I think this group is fantastic. It's incredible what you are working on. It's extremely important. So don't stop working, share, make it, make noise around this, because we need to be working on transformational practices from arts. We need to make sure that society nowadays understands how much of a constituency of our human beings, of our species, arts and culture is. It is what enables us to be together, what enables us to investigate, to create, to build something, and to reflect on our errors also as a humanity. And it is important that you share the word of the practices, technically speaking, but also the word of how they transform, which is one of the big voids we are currently having, right? Inside and outside the sector of culture. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you so much for having us today. I was going to say this morning, but for most of you, it's already afternoon.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for joining and contributing to the discussion. And thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.